I was recently called out by a friend that Christians sanitize things too much and that we make our stories into like amazing stories about God, and we keep them really upbeat. And a lot of people find that to be unrelatable, especially when they're hurting. So um, I guess I'm going to tell this in the raw, like completely unfiltered. So sorry if there's cussing. Sorry if it's a little harsh at times, but this was my truth, my story, um, my witness to God's amazing love and the way that He changed my life over the last 3 years. And we're told as Wilson's disease patients to share our story. So that's the story I'm going to tell today. That will be my testimony for this. Maybe it turns into a series or something, and I do more than just this one, and I share some different stories of God's redemption in my life. But for right now, it is Wilson's focused and kind of the end of my marriage. And so I'm looking at my notes because I want to make sure I get all the right disclaimers in and make sure I kind of get this close to an order because my dyslexia likes to switch things around. So with all that said, since this is my story, like major disclaimer, I'm not pointing fingers. I am not trying to condemn anyone. If you think you know who I'm talking about at times, please don't feel like you need to stand up for me to that person or persons. They are broken and hurt, and sometimes, we act out of our brokenness and hurt. We're all broken, and that's why we need Christ. And God's got it on lock. He's got the vengeance thing on lock. He's got the forgiveness things on lock. He knows how to take care of those people, and I don't need to do it, and you don't need to do it. But it's life. Like, we hurt each other, unfortunately. It's a big part of life. So, without further ado, so I guess I should probably tell you a little bit about myself, backstory, so you can kind of like picture where you're at. I think it's the storyteller in me, the theater in me, that like feels you need the backstory. We don't have a dramaturg over into the side, so I am dramaturg now. And for those of you who don't know, they're like the people who know the play or musical or whatever and can tell you background and context and stuff. So this is the context for my life at this point. It's 2016. My ex and I had just moved back to Indy, and we were staying with my mom just so we could save up for a house. And in 2016, we my ex told me that he had been cheating on me our entire relationship, not just marriage, entire relationship. Yes, it was a real thing, and it was with other men. We started going to counseling because that's what he wanted to do, because he really wanted to make our marriage work. So that's what we were doing. We were actually doing pretty well there for a while. And then on the other side, I had a good job that I really enjoyed sewing for. They were amazing, and it was really challenging. Putting machines into like fabric was so cool. Totally up my alley. So that is enough of the backstory. Now, so we fast forward to that fall. So everything came out in May that he had been cheating on me. And then now in fall, we've gone through some counseling. We're getting starting to catch our rhythm. I'm starting to notice some things. My hands are a little shaky on occasion, but I'm thinking, well, maybe it's low blood sugar, even though I just ate. Maybe it just needs some time to like digest, and then it would just go away. So well, I guess that must be what it is. And then it was, I think like that, yeah, the following winter, I had like 3 flus, like really, really bad in a row, like weeks out at a time for the flu, which is not normal for me. So I'm like, there really is something happening with my immune system. I don't understand. I'm experiencing major fatigue. Like, I would be exercising and we would just be doing the warm-ups, and it would be like some floor work, and all of a sudden I would be asleep, and I would wake up with the end of the exercise because it was on one of those little videos. Sorry, I'm saying a lot. So anyway, I'm a little nervous. This is like, I mean, this is really bearing your soul about everything. So yeah, there definitely will be tears. So by our our fourth anniversary in the fourth in March, I got really sick again, or so I thought, and my head was like literally spinning out of control. I could barely walk. I was like walking like a drunk person to just try and get to the bathroom. And slowly but surely over the next few days, weeks, things started getting worse. I started having seizure, like small seizures and tremors, or maybe they were full body tremor. I was having trouble with speaking. I was having fuzzy cognitive thinking. Um, I was just exhausted all the time. I would crawl from the living room to the bathroom and then crawl back because I couldn't walk. And I mean, sometimes it was like an army crawl, like where you're like just using your arms to just kind of get there. And it takes for freaking ever. I spent so many days in bed and it was so depressing. I mean, I'm an extrovert, so to be at home this much is like awful. It is awful. It's really awful. I'm sure a lot of you can relate who've been through this COVID situation. But it was just, and I didn't have energy to do anything. Like cooking was out, and that annoyed my ex. I couldn't really help with bills. I couldn't really work. Obviously I went to the doctor. I went to two different doctors, and both of them came back saying like, oh, well, you're 30, right? And I'm like, what does 30 have to do with being ill? I mean, is there like a magical thing that happens at 30 that they don't tell us in school? Like, when you hit 30, life will suck. Like, what is that? So they were like, yeah, well, you're 30. A lot of women go through depression at 30. And I was like, all this is depression? Well, you're stressed, right? Like you just went through this big thing in your marriage. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like it doesn't like own my life. That's weird. So, well, not for some, of course, but for me, that is weird. That's not how I internalize. It's not how I work through things. So I was just like, what are you crazy people talking about? Like this, I felt so unheard and so lost and so frustrated. Like, can't you hear me? Like I am in pain. Oh yeah, I forgot about the nerve pain, and I feel it every day. I think it's become like kind of just a thing that floats at the back of my brain. Um, but it's just like I'm in pain. I'm having tremors. Like, how can this be related to depression? That doesn't make any sense. Like the insomnia, yes. The bouts of random emotion, maybe, but like no, not really. So then I remembered, oh yeah, I like a few months ago went into this other doctor that my amazing bosses at the time had paid for us all to get this Boston heart test from this particular doctor. And I really hit it off with him. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go back there, and I felt like a really good piece about it. And it turned out it was great. I like walked in and he was like, whoa, I saw you like 2 months ago. What happened? And I was like, I know, right? And he was like, nah, are you ready to do like a huge battery of tests? And I'm like, yeah, I think we got to do something. Like, this is not going to work for me. So bump up the testing, and my ex-husband and I really bump up the counseling. We go to he has a counselor, I have a counselor, and then we do couples counseling, trying to work through all of this because now we were just barely getting going and like getting more confident, and then I get really ill. Like it just was very difficult. So we are working on all of that, and I start feeling him pull away. He's not as connecting with me anymore. I can kind of get a sense that he's feeling ashamed of me. He doesn't ask me to go out places with him anymore, like asks me not to come into his place of business. And he starts drinking like a lot. like even more. And then it comes to find out that he actually has been struggling with alcoholism for a long time, and his way of coping with it is making himself throwing up afterwards, because that's responsible drinking. I felt so lost and so confused, because like, at this time, like, your partner's supposed to, become your anchor and like be able to really help you through something like this. Like, they're supposed to like want to be your hero, and mine is wanting to walk away and just leave me. I didn't know how to make things work. I mean, I was just trying to survive physically and mentally, trying to hold things together. We would have so many fights over just the fact that like I couldn't do the things that I used to do, and I was frustrated with me as much as he was. I wanted to do everything again. I wanted to be normal, but he didn't believe me. In fact, he would ask me, when's his turn to stay home for 3 months, and not have to go into work. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't ask for this. This isn't what I wanted. I never pictured myself this way, and I am an independent woman. I was raised to be like crazy independent, and to find myself so dependent was so very humbling for me. To ask for help, ugh. Like, really? I feel like such a major failure. I mean, I have a degree. Like, I'm supposed to be able to go and make like serious cash and be able to afford a house and everything. And that was what our dream was to, get a house and set down roots so that maybe we could focus on having kids. And everything was just gone all in like seconds. And sorry, I'll get off that tangent. Around August and September of 2017 is when things really started to tank. I got my diagnosis for Wilson's. And I guess I should say all during this time, my bosses were great and let me bring my work home, so I was able to work from home for a little bit there. But our fights were getting more and more destructive and more hurtful, and our counselors said that we probably would be best to separate, and they don't suggest that lightly. But it was just getting more and more toxic. We needed space from each other. And we had been talking about it. And after I got diagnosed, he was like, yeah, I think something broke. And so he left. He packed up his stuff and walked out. And I felt so awful that I felt relieved, and a little guilty that I did. But it was just nice not to have to fight anymore. It really was. It was really nice. I didn't have to scrunch into the corner of the bed when we slept together, that I didn't have to worry about him kicking or hitting me by accident in the middle of the night. I didn't have to worry about feeling guilty that I wasn't strong enough to make dinner before he got home. I didn't have to worry about trying to depend on him in any way. That I could just ask my mom to do it instead, because I knew that she could do it, and then she wouldn't be upset with me for not being perfect. And that meant so much to me. And it's hard enough asking for help, but having someone tell you that you're being ridiculous and you should do it yourself, I think, oh, there's my Kleenex. I made sure to have someone near me, but I couldn't remember where I put it. Thank goodness for notes, right? So after the first month of us being separated, he went back to smoking and drinking a lot. And then going back to cheating again. And just before Christmas, he tells me that he wants a divorce. And it wasn't like I didn't see it coming, especially after he started smoking again. I'm allergic, so I knew that it was going to be over. So I begged him that we would not divorce just before Christmas. I just didn't want it to be tainted, forever. So, and he consented, and that was fine. And then I realized after the holidays that I was going to have to ask him again, because he was the only one making money for us. And what little work I was able to do for my company wasn't enough to really live off of, and I didn't have insurance with them. So, and the pills for Wilson's is just, it's a crazy amount of money. So I just asked him if I could have a little bit more time to figure out everything. And then to add insult to injury, and he did give it to me, but to add insult to injury, I realized I really had to get on welfare. A college graduate getting onto welfare. Real life story. I hated it. I still do. It's a really hard thing to do, to admit that you need that kind of help. And it was no easier for me. But I did have friends that had found financial help for their medication that also was pretty expensive. So I hit up those people and was able to get some medication while I waited for me to be able to be picked up that way. And then just before our 5th anniversary, I filed for divorce. I couldn't figure out why, but he had lost interest in wanting to do it, or something about doing it around our anniversary that he didn't want to do it, and which was weird because it's like he wanted to end things anyway. To me, it's like nice and circular, right? Like start and end, same date. So I applied. You have to wait 3 months for that to get finalized. And oops, I guess I should stop here and point out, because so far I've done a lot of ripping open my soul and telling you about all the dark horribleness of life during this time. Now the gold that's filling in, and I think of myself, I guess, if you've ever seen kintsugi or have heard of it, it's a Japanese way of repairing pottery. They repair it with gold in all the cracks and things when it's broken. And I kind of thought of myself as that kind of project this whole time. For God. And you're probably going, well, you kind of mentioned friends and family. Like, was anyone there to support you? Were you totally alone? No, I wasn't alone. I wasn't. There was definitely rejection from friends, people who didn't want to deal with the drama of a failed marriage and a mystery illness, a permanent illness. But it wasn't all of them, and I understand why they did. And not everybody can deal with this kind of crazy. And I wish them the best. And I'm glad, because in some ways, because like if they were going to turn into a toxic friend instead, I'd rather them, like, kind of the golden rule: if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. So if their option was to walk away and not say it at all, then thank you for not saying anything, because I had about as enough negativity as I could handle during that time period, obvi. um so that was true, but then I had some amazing family and friends that just really pulled together behind me and checked in on me and sent surprises to me and spent time with me. And I'll never be able to thank you enough for all your help. I think I don't know that I could have made it without you. And just showing up. I know you didn't always have the words or the know-how, but you just being there meant the world to me. So thank you. And for those friends and family that are watching this and they didn't know everything, and you're upset with me for not sharing. It was so hard to share with the few that I did. It's so embarrassing to admit you failed on such a real level. And even though it was out of my control, it was hard not to blame myself. Really hard. And here I put on this nice makeup so I wouldn't look like a dead person, and it's all coming off. That's what I get for my vanity, right? So, God during this time, it was so amazing. Everyone was like, so you must be really depressed and you must be, like, so sad. And I'm like, yeah, there were bouts of sadness, totally. And then there was moments of hilarity. My mom and we learned how to just make fun of me, like, having, like, spastic moments. And because they look ridiculous, especially when certain music would come on, my body would just start moving of its own accord and, like, moving to the music. It was like, and it was really painful too, because I wasn't making the choices, so it just, like, kind of was like jerky. I felt like a puppet or something. It was really weird. So it's just really crazy, but it was fun. It was silly. It was joyful. I learned how to just laugh at things, and God pulled so close, so close. Every time I asked, he was right there, willing to hold my hand. He would help me either get out of my bitterness or my anger or my sadness or my frustration, or in my times of joy and gratefulness, he would rejoice with me and make it even more beautiful and more wonderful. But I just had to remind myself that he was right there with me, waiting to help me. So now, back to the story. It's May 31st. Our divorce is finalized. I say it with a smile because we both were so relieved. We smiled on the way out of the courtroom. We're like, it's official today? Great. Wonderful. Wunderbar. I was so relieved. Free. Finally, this chapter is closed. I don't have to live it again. It's done. A new one can open. A new dawn, right? So then that June, which is like, boop, one day, I apply for disability because I definitely, I can't go back to work. I have been out of work for a while at this point, and I've been applying. So I applied, and because what little jobs I have and things did not amount enough to what they would consider work. It was more like hobbyist type thing. So, like, yeah, kind of like maybe a craft business or something that you're kind of like doing on Facebook, side job type deal. So it doesn't really count as income. So now we're gonna fast forward to 2019. Okay, so that was May 2018. Now we're to June 2018. And I am applying for disability. It took forever to do it. It was kind of like having the flu, like really bad flu, like, you know, when you can't, like, you're like fog brain and you're just like, I don't even know what life is, and you're trying to like type up a term paper to turn in the next day. It's like that hard, like really hard math. And so I did it. It happened. And there's a long time of waiting. So now we're skipping to November, just before Thanksgiving 2019. That's right, from June 2018 to November 2019. A long time to wait. A long time to wait. And I mean, like, I'm checking in with my lawyer and going, hey, so, and by the way, like, make sure to just for those of you who may be going through a similar situation, just get a disability lawyer. And a good one is not going to charge you until after they win you the case. Just saying. So they call me and tell me, hey, so did you get your thing? Like, we're going to court. I'm like, yep. So we go there the day before Thanksgiving. I know, crazy, right? Just in time for the holidays. Perfect. That's not exactly what you want to do right before Thanksgiving. Not stressful at all. No. So we get there, and I'm really nervous, and I'm out of control, and I'm just tired of being in limbo. I'm so tired. I'm tired of being in limbo emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. I need closure. I can't, this long season of winnowing and of the desert, the famine, I need it to end. I can't handle it anymore. I'm so tired of the uncertainty. Like, I literally cannot handle it. Like, it's gonna cause a second ulcer or something. But I was not ready. I mean, my lawyer did a wonderful job of going through questions with me and everything, so I wasn't like totally blindsided, but at the same time, I was blindsided. I wasn't prepared mentally and emotionally for being judged like that. I just wasn't. I wasn't ready for it. Like, I just, you see the crime shows, you see Judge Judy, you know, and you know, like, those aren't real. And you know that, like, going to disability court is going to be, like, different because there's not even, like, open court. Like, you're literally in a room with, like, a big old table, and they're still sitting above you, like, being a judge, but, like, you just aren't expecting it. It's kind of like sitting in a room of strangers. There's two strangers that are getting ready to, like, one's judging you, one's recording all the notes, like writing down everything that you say. And then you have someone that you just like barely have met, and like just a couple of phone calls, and then like you just met them that day, like for the first time in person. And they won't even let your mom in because that's what the way that this judge decided this needed to go. So I'm sitting there, and my body just starts acting all shades of funny, and my arm just decides to stick itself up in the air and like do its weird little thing. It's really fun. My hand's just like twisting around and like holding up there, and I'm like, please, 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 just relax, please stop, just, I can't. And I'm like staring at the, like, I'm trying not to stare at the judge, and then the judge is like, do you need something? And I'm like, no, it's the disease. It's unfortunate. And so then I start crying because I'm just like, she doesn't understand. No one in this room really understands. My lawyer barely understands. And I'm like trying to like force my arm down into some sort of submission. And I finally get it down. And I then try and like scavenge for Kleenex, you know, because I'm like, here we go. Like, I even dressed cute and everything because I was just like, you know, best presentation type deal. This woman has already decided that I'm a liar. That is clear on her face. I have gotten everything handed to me. I've never had to work through anything. Like, I just want an easy out. Like, you can see it written all over her face. Dislike. That is what is happening right now. I'm like, okay. So she starts asking me questions like about what my last job was, and I'm trying to say the word snap because I was talking about how like the machine snaps into the product that I sew. Well, I can't say snap. I'm just saying and I can't do it. It won't come out at all. I'm just stuttering and I'm just going. Finally, I go, well, if I think of a different word, I'm like buttons that go together that are a closure, and they've got like the male and female parts, and just like click. And they're looking at me like they don't know what's happening, and I'm gonna have to give them a word. And I'm like, and I mean, and the tears are rolling down my face because I just can't say it. And I'm like, snap. And I'm like, I feel like I should get a gold star. I finally said the word snap. It just happens. And I don't know why like it happens that way. It's part of the disease where I just get stuck on certain words sometimes. So that happens. And then they ask me about my life and what I'm doing now. And she tries to catch me in a lie that like I'm able to do more work than what I say I can. And then she goes and consults this doctor who's on the phone, and the doctor isn't really paying attention. And it's like, oh, and you can hear her shuffling papers and like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be paying attention to what you're saying. I was watching the soap opera that I had on instead, since I'm not actually there in court. And so the judge was not happy with that. And the judge is like asking her questions like with my different symptoms. She lists all of my symptoms initially, and then the doctor says no, she can't work. And then she lists partial symptoms, and she goes, oh well, she could do this job, just this job. And then she separates it again, and then they say you can do even more jobs. And my lawyer's going, this is so pointless. Like this is not right. This is just not. And he's so upset for me. He's like, this judge is like, she's fair, but she's just like really harsh. And I'm like, I get it now. I get what he was saying now. And he didn't say it in so many words, but he alluded. He was very professional. Anyway, so I'm watching, and I'm going, they're deciding my fate, and this is so flippant to them. Like, it has nothing to do with me and my body. I'm losing control slowly but surely. I am sinking down into my seat because my head is starting to move like this all on its own. And I can't make it stop. It's just going and going. Well, I really shouldn't be doing this because now it's going to happen for real. But I sink down and I have myself sitting like this. And my lawyer starts asking me questions like, because I'm now his witness or whatever. And he goes, Amanda, has this affected any of your relationships? I'm like, yes. And he goes, which ones? And I'm like, well, friends and my husband left me. And yeah, that hurt. And then she goes, oh, but you're dating now, right? And I'm like, no. I mean, who wants to date a cripple? Like, who wants this mess? My husband didn't even want me. So how would some strange man who's never known me would want me? And then she asked me, but you hang out with your friends a lot, right? And I'm like, I mean, I'm completely isolated. I mean, this is me right now. Who wants to hang out with somebody who's constantly moving and they can't even make eye contact because it's just so hard to watch? And like, yeah, I hang out with my friends when I have good days, and I go out sometimes if I can save up enough money, or if somebody gave me a gift card, or if somebody offers to buy stuff for me. But no. Oh, this is my life. And she was shocked. And I was like, I remember telling a lady afterwards, they're like, yeah, I try not to cry. And I'm like, I figure if you call me in there and you ask me to share all of my flaws and faults with you for you to judge my weakest points, then you get to see me cry. I was so ashamed, and it was so degrading, so demeaning. Oh, I just wanted it to get over with, and I just wanted my mommy. I wanted her to come in and save me. I had to calm down for a second because I didn't think you guys would understand me. After a while, I'd go to like dog pitch. But yeah, no, I wanted my mom. The pain was so agonizing, so painful. I thought it felt like I was being whipped and just trying to hold my body together. It was so out of control. I was so stressed, and it was just adding to all the nerve pain. Everything was going wrong. I felt so unsafe. I felt so abandoned. And then finally, 45 minutes of hell is over. And I turned to my lawyer because I can't get out of the chair. Not by myself. I ask him to go get my mom. My mom comes in and she looks like she's about to kill someone. Like, legit about to like tear somebody apart. I don't think I've seen her that angry before. And she is, I mean, because I'm just like, I'm laying there and I'm like, hi mom. Because this is the back of the chair and that's where my head is like leaning on. And tears are streaking down my face. I can't stop anything. And the judge is making sure not to make eye contact with my mother because my mom looks like she's going to rip her apart. She's like, they couldn't come and have got me any sooner than this. They've just left you like this in this chair. I looked horrible, I'm sure. I'm sure it's been burned into my mom's memory. So then we have 30 days to wait for the verdict. Yes, the torture doesn't end there. They give it like, I think the shortest amount of time is like 28 to 29 days. And then it can be anywhere from that to like 90 days, depending on how much deliberation they need to have. And so I'm thinking I won't hear until after the holidays for sure, you know? It felt like a lifetime those days. To be waiting to find out if they find you wanting or if you're unworthy of their help. Yeah, unworthy. That was definitely a word I struggled with a lot during this season. A lot. And then the 23rd of December, I got my letter. I was so nervous about opening it. I think I even waited for my mom to come home so I wouldn't have to open it by myself. And I was approved. I was worthy of being helped. God saw me. He saw my pain. And he provided for me. I was so happy. So many cheers of joy for something I never wanted. But I was so relieved to have. I didn't have to be a burden financially anymore. I didn't have to feel guilty that I couldn't pull any weight. I could be done with this horrible limbo and this axe that kept on feeling like it was just waiting to drop on my head. Probably it's really gross for you guys to watch me blow my nose, but we said in the raw, right? So yeah, it was so amazing, so liberating. I felt like God finally heard me. And finally, maybe I could get to breathe. Maybe I could buy myself new underwear, you know? Mine were getting holes and were falling off. I needed some before I got divorced. But we were putting it off until we had more cash. So finally I could get things like that and get some new clothes that actually fit. I lost over 20 pounds. All of my clothes I was swimming in. It looked really, really bad. There were very few that I could fit in comfortably and not feel like I looked like a homeless person. And then finally, February of this year, I got my first check. Finally, I could pay off some debt. I could finally help my mom out. Finally, I could go out with friends without worrying about how much I'm eating. I didn't have to have like a muffin and a thing of tea or just tea. Finally, the creditors would stop banging on our door. A sweet relief. So wonderful. Okay, so we're at the end. And how did God take care of me this whole time? I've talked about all the horrible stuff. There's something that kept on coming towards me. I think maybe my cousin had mentioned this to me, and I probably heard it a few other places too. But I found my journal entry, and it says, "Surrender means victory in Christ." And between that and like the many verses about strength and the many stories of people just believing in God, from Gideon to Job to all of Jesus's little parables that he tells in the New Testament, they all wove together to help me during this time, and they all told a new story to me, hearing them from a different perspective than before, living in this kind of situation. Just so many different things. They're so amazing. And in these past 3 years of famine, God provided for me from paycheck to paycheck. He made sure I always had food and I had a shelter, and he even blessed me with vacations and trips, and we had a really awesome opportunity where both my mom and I, all expenses paid, to go to New York just to talk about Wilson's disease. I mean, talk about bringing some lemonade out of them lemons. That was definitely one of them. And it was such a fluky thing of how I even got in contact with them. And they paid us for our time there too. It was so awesome. And I'd never been to New York, and we've gone twice now. And it's been so amazing to be able to be such an integral part of helping with Wilson's. And he's like even made it possible for me to deepen my relationships with my current core group of friends and family, and also start some new friends and relationships, and that's been wonderful. And he's renewed my heart, and fixed some places that were broken even pre-marriage. And because he's amazing like that. He's not just gonna take you, like, you give him one Annie and he like times 30 Annies you up. And he renewed some new dreams in my heart and in my life. He taught me of my identity. I felt like I was really stripped away. I mean, I really defined myself by my career and what I was able to give and what I was able to do. And he showed me that I am his child first and foremost. I am his daughter, and that he loves me so very much. And even though you walk through valleys, because not everything can be in a mountaintop experience, right? It makes you appreciate the mountaintops that much more, living in the valleys. And sometimes you can't see the end of the valley for sure. And I'm not sure that I'm completely out of everything yet, but things have definitely been wonderful. And there have been so many little things along the way of just, he would send me little pick-me-ups or reminders, or all of a sudden a song would come on and I knew it was a message from him of just his love and his enduring kindness and grace. And he taught me how to be truly humble, not thinking less of myself, but less about myself, even in being ill, like, and learning how to work through the pain, and that the pain doesn't have to spread to everybody else, and that I can pray for more grace, and I can pray to make it through all of this. I have Bibles. I have even, CBD oil passed in Indiana that we could take it legally without the THC. And so that has been amazing for my mood swings, and it has been amazing for some of my nerve pain. So hallelujah. And he has provided in so many ways. I mean, I think I could sit here for probably another 30 minutes and tell you about it. But his grace is enough. And he is putting my pieces back together piece by piece. But he's not just gluing them back together with some like super glue or something. No, it's with gold, like kintsugi, like beautifully potteried together. So it's even more gorgeous of a piece afterward than before. And he really shines his light through because he doesn't want me to hide my brokenness. He wants to be in the middle of my brokenness and make it beautiful and make it wonderful. Kind of like, I pictured it as like when you see like wildflowers just doing their own thing and just growing in like the most random of places, but it's so gorgeous, but no one could have ever planted it that way other than our wonderful creator. And I think it's the same thing. I just feel like these huge flowers are just blossoming out of all these broken and dry soil and like are finally reaching up towards the sun. They've finally been watered and nurtured and planted, and it's very cool. But it was a choice. It wasn't an easy choice, and it is a daily choice. It's not something that you can make a pat answer for being a Christian and saying like this is how you do it or whatever. Everyone has their own walk and their own relationship with Christ. And it's not that you can't help one another along the way or give little guideposts along the way, but you have to discover him and taste that he's good on your own. I can only lead you to the water that is him, but it's your job to take it. And I had this like beautifully written out, but of course, saying it in real life is a little different. But I'm going to do my best to paraphrase what I said. Know that he loves you, and he sees you right where you are in all of the ugliness and the brokenness, all the frustration, the fear, the depression, the doubt, the hate, the anger. And he still loves you. And he still wants to be there for you so desperately. And all you have to do is turn and take his hand. And if you don't know Christ yet, I invite you to invite him into your heart, to accept him as your Lord and Savior, to recognize that you're a sinner and you're broken without him. And then I'd say get into a really good Bible-based church. And if you have more questions, you're more than happy to message me or email me or whatever. I'll leave some connection stuff down at the bottom. But yeah, that's my story, Annie. That's my testimony. And this is also for all you people who are telling me that I needed to make more videos. So here it is, super long. Be careful what you ask for. God bless everybody. And I hope in your adventure and your stories that you're finding God all over the place.